The fluorescent lights in Dr. Martinez's office buzzed like angry wasps as I stared at the test results. Chlamydia. The word sat there on the paper like a curse written in medical terminology. "This has to be wrong," I said, my voice cracking like a teenager's. "I mean, there's got to be some mistake." Dr. Martinez, a woman who'd seen enough shocked faces to fill a football stadium, just shook her head. "The test is accurate, Nate. We ran it twice, to be sure." Nate Barlow, 38 years old, IT engineer, faithful husband for 12 years, and now apparently a walking advertisement for why you should never trust anyone. The irony wasn't lost on me that I spent my days debugging computer systems while my own life had crashed harder than Windows 95. "How long have I had this?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer would make everything worse. "Hard to say. Could be weeks, could be months. The symptoms don't always show up right away." Weeks. Months. My mind raced back through the calendar like a detective searching for clues in a case I never wanted to solve. Andrea and I hadn't been intimate much lately, but when we were, it was always just us. At least, I thought it was just us. The drive home felt like a funeral procession where I was both the mourner and the corpse. Our suburban Chicago neighborhood looked the same as always: perfectly manicured lawns, 2-car garages, and the kind of quiet desperation that comes with 30-year mortgages. But something had shifted. The American dream had developed a crack, and I could see the rot underneath. Andrea's silver Honda wasn't in the driveway. She was probably showing another house to another client, doing that thing she did where she'd touch their arm and laugh at jokes that weren't funny. Real estate, she called it. I was starting to wonder what else she was selling. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at our house. We'd bought it 5 years ago when Andrea's career took off. She'd insisted on the upgraded kitchen, the master bathroom with the fancy shower, the walk-in closet that was bigger than my first apartment. "We deserve this," she'd said, and I'd believed her. Now I wondered what exactly I'd deserved. My phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. "Working late again. Don't wait up. Leftover pizza in fridge." Working late. Right. Because apparently the real estate market in suburban Chicago was busier than the emergency room on New Year's Eve. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I walked into our house, my house according to the mortgage I'd been paying, and everything looked different. The family photos on the mantel seemed to mock me. Andrea's smile in our wedding picture looked less radiant and more calculating. Had it always been that way, or was I seeing things through new eyes? The leftover pizza tasted like cardboard, but then again, everything was going to taste different now. I tried watching television, but every commercial seemed to be either for couples therapy or lawyers. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. Around midnight, I heard Andrea's car in the driveway. She came in quietly, probably thinking I was asleep. I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, the sound of the shower running, the careful way she slipped into bed without touching me. "How was your day?" she whispered. "Interesting," I said. "Had a doctor's appointment." "Everything okay?" This was it. The moment when I could either pretend everything was fine or drop the bomb that would change everything. I chose the bomb. "I have chlamydia." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the neighbor's dog barking 3 houses down. Andrea sat up so fast the bed shook. "What did you say?" "You heard me. Chlamydia, an STD, the kind you get from having intimate relations with someone who's been having intimate relations with someone else." Even in the darkness, I could feel her mind racing, calculating, preparing her defense. Andrea had always been quick on her feet. It's what made her good at sales. "That's impossible," she said. "Are you sure?" "Pretty sure. They ran the test twice." "Well, it wasn't from me," she said, her voice getting sharper. "I've been faithful to you for 12 years. If you have an STD, then you're the one who's been cheating." And there it was. The classic Andrea move. Take any accusation and flip it around until somehow I was the bad guy. I'd seen her do it to clients, to her friends, to her family. I just never thought she'd do it to me. "Andrea, think about what you're saying. When would I have time to cheat? I work from home. You know where I am every minute of every day." "I don't know, Nate. Maybe during one of your trips to the office. Maybe with one of those young interns. You always said they looked up to you." The interns. She was really reaching now. The company had 3 interns, all of them male, all of them more interested in video games than anything else. "This is ridiculous," I said. "I haven't cheated on you. I've never even thought about cheating on you." "Well, someone has been thinking about it," she snapped. "And since it wasn't me, it must have been you." She got out of bed and grabbed her pillow. I'm sleeping in the guest room until you figure out what you've done and who you've done it with. I lay there in the dark, listening to her stomp down the hall like a teenager having a tantrum. 12 years of marriage, and this was how she reacted to what should have been our crisis. Not, how do we figure this out together, or what does this mean for us? Just immediate blame and retreat. My phone buzzed again. A text from my best friend Rick. Beer tomorrow? You sounded weird on the phone earlier. Rick O'Malley had been my friend since college. He taught high school history and had the kind of steady, reliable personality that made him everyone's confidant. If anyone would have advice for this situation, it would be Rick. I texted back, "Yeah, I need to talk." The next morning, Andrea was gone before I woke up. No note, no coffee made, no acknowledgement that anything had happened, just her absence and the lingering smell of her expensive perfume. I made my own coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring out at our backyard. The grass needed cutting, the fence needed painting. Everything needed something, and I was starting to wonder if I was the only one who cared about maintenance. My laptop chimed with work emails, but I couldn't concentrate. Every few minutes, I found myself checking our joint bank account, looking at credit card statements, trying to find clues I'd missed. There were restaurant charges I didn't recognize, gas station purchases in parts of town where Andrea had no clients, hotel charges that didn't match any trips we'd taken together. How long had I been this oblivious? Around noon, I drove to Murphy's Pub to meet Rick. It was the kind of place where teachers and IT guys could afford to drink their problems away without breaking the budget. Rick was already there, nursing a beer and grading papers. "You look terrible," he said as I sat down. "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear." I ordered a beer and tried to figure out how to explain my situation without sounding like a complete fool. Rick waited patiently. He was good at that, waiting for students to work through problems on their own. "Andrea's cheating on me," I said finally. Rick's pen stopped moving across the paper. "What makes you think that?" I told him about the STD, about Andrea's reaction, about the strange charges on our accounts. Rick listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic noises. "That's rough, man," he said when I finished. "But are you sure? I mean, Andrea's always been social, but cheating?" Social. That was one way to put it. Andrea collected people the way some people collected stamps. She had friends everywhere, clients who became friends who became clients, an endless network of connections that she maintained with the skill of a professional politician. "I'm sure," I said. "I just don't know what to do about it." "Have you thought about counseling? Maybe you two can work through this." "Rick, she accused me of cheating. She didn't even consider the possibility that she might be the source of the problem." "People react differently to stress," Rick said. "Maybe she just needs time to process." Time to process. Right. Because that's what cheaters need. More time to figure out better lies. We finished our beers and I drove home, feeling worse than when I'd left. Even my best friend seemed to be taking Andrea's side, or at least giving her the benefit of the doubt she didn't deserve. That evening, Andrea came home with flowers and takeout from my favorite restaurant. "I've been thinking about our conversation," she said, setting the food on the counter. "Maybe I was too harsh. This is a shock for both of us." She was using her sales voice, warm, understanding, designed to make the customer feel like they were making the right choice. I'd heard her use it 1,000 times on the phone with clients. "I made an appointment with Dr. Martinez," she continued. "I'll get tested too. We'll figure this out together." Together. The word should have been comforting, but it felt like another sales technique. Create the illusion of partnership while maintaining control of the conversation. "That's good," I said, because what else could I say? We ate dinner and watched television like a normal couple. Andrea even laughed at my jokes and snuggled up next to me on the couch. For a moment, I almost believed that everything might be okay. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it quickly and then set it face down on the coffee table. "Work?" I asked. "Just Becca. She wants to know if I'm free for lunch tomorrow." Becca Martinez, not the doctor, but Andrea's friend who worked part-time as a social media influencer and full-time as a gossip distributor. If there was drama happening in our social circle, Becca either started it or knew who did. "Tell her I said hi," I said, watching Andrea's face. "Sure," she said, but she didn't pick up her phone. Later that night, after Andrea had fallen asleep, I crept downstairs and checked her phone. She'd changed the passcode. In 12 years of marriage, Andrea had never locked her phone around me. I stood in our kitchen at 2 a.m, holding my wife's phone like evidence in a trial I didn't want to be part of. The house felt different now. Less like a home, and more like a crime scene. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your wife's car was at the Marriott downtown last Tuesday. Thought you should know, a friend. I stared at the message until the screen went dark, then read it again. Last Tuesday, Andrea had said she was showing houses in the suburbs. The Marriott was downtown, nowhere near any of her listings. Someone was watching, someone knew, and someone wanted me to know too. The game had changed, but I was just starting to understand the rules. The next morning, Andrea left early for her lunch with Becca, but not before kissing me goodbye like we were still the happy couple from our wedding photos. Her perfume lingered in the air long after her car disappeared down our street, and I found myself wondering when her kisses had started feeling like lies. I spent the morning doing what I do best, investigating systems and finding problems. Except this time, the system was my marriage, and the problems were multiplying faster than computer viruses. Our joint credit card statements told a story Andrea hadn't bothered to share with me. The Marriott charge from last Tuesday was there, along with several others I didn't recognize. Lunch at expensive restaurants on days when she'd claimed to be showing houses. Purchases at Victoria's Secret when she'd been wearing the same old nightgowns at home. Gas station charges in neighborhoods where she had no business being. Each charge was like a piece of a puzzle I didn't want to solve, but couldn't stop working on. My phone rang. Rick. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "Like a house of cards in a tornado," I said. "Andrea's getting tested today, but I found some interesting charges on our credit card." "Maybe there's an explanation," Rick said. "You know how these things can get blown out of proportion." There it was again, Rick defending Andrea, suggesting I was overreacting. It bothered me more than it should have. Rick had been my friend long before he'd met Andrea, but lately, he seemed more concerned with her feelings than mine. "Maybe," I said, though I didn't believe it. After we hung up, I decided to do some field research. Andrea's real estate office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a sandwich shop. I'd been there plenty of times for company parties and client events, but never as a suspicious husband conducting surveillance. I parked across the street and waited. Andrea's silver Honda was in the parking lot, which meant she was either actually at work or using the office as an alibi while she did something else nearby. Around noon, I watched her come out of the building with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed, and drove a BMW that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. They didn't hug goodbye, but there was something in the way they stood close together, the way she touched his arm when she laughed, that made my stomach twist. I followed them to a restaurant downtown. Not the kind of place you go for business lunches, but the kind where couples go when they want privacy and don't mind paying for it. I sat in my car across the street, watching through the restaurant's windows like a private investigator in a bad movie. They sat at a corner table, leaning toward each other, sharing food from each other's plates. Andrea laughed at something he said, throwing her head back in that way she used to laugh at my jokes. My phone buzzed. A text from Andrea. "Lunch running long. Client wants to see 3 more houses. Don't wait up for dinner." Client. Right. I watched them for another hour. They held hands across the table. He paid the check. They walked to the parking garage together, and I lost sight of them. That evening, Andrea came home with stories about difficult clients and demanding schedules. She was animated, energetic, more talkative than she'd been in months. Guilt, I realized, made her chatty. "How was your day?" she asked, settling onto the couch next to me. "Quiet," I said. "Did some work, ran some errands." "That's nice. Oh, I got the test results back from Dr. Martinez." My heart stopped. "And?" "Negative. Clean as a whistle." She smiled at me like she'd just proven her innocence beyond any doubt. "That's impossible," I said. "Why would it be impossible? I told you I haven't been unfaithful." But the math didn't work. If Andrea was clean and I had chlamydia, then either the test was wrong or she'd been treated already, or... I couldn't think of another option that made sense. "Maybe you should get retested," I said. "Why?" "The test was clear. Maybe you should focus on figuring out where you picked up your little problem." There she was again, flipping the script, making me the villain in her story. But this time, I was ready for it. "I saw you today," I said quietly. The color drained from her face. "What do you mean?" "Downtown, at Romano's, with your client who drives the BMW." Andrea's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. For the first time in our marriage, she was speechless. That was business," she said finally. "Holding hands is business now? You were spying on me?" I was trying to understand why my wife is lying to me about where she spends her time. Andrea stood up, pacing around our living room like a caged animal. "This is insane, Nate. You're acting paranoid and jealous and crazy." "Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're having an affair. You gave me an STD, and now you're trying to make me think I'm losing my mind." "I am not having an affair," she shouted. "Then who is he?" "Travis Klein. He's a client. A very important client who's looking at million-dollar properties. I have to wine and dine him. It's part of the job. Travis Klein. Finally, a name to go with the face. And the hand-holding? He's touchy. Some people are like that. It doesn't mean anything. What about the hotel charges?" Another pause. Another calculation. "Sometimes we have to meet clients at hotels when they're looking at properties nearby. It's easier than driving back to the office." Lie after lie after lie. Each one delivered with the confidence of someone who'd been practicing. "I want to see your phone," I said. "No." "No?" "You don't trust me, and I'm not going to enable your paranoia by letting you go through my private messages." "Private messages with your client?" "Private messages with everyone. I have a right to privacy, Nate, even from my husband." She was right, technically, but innocent people don't usually demand privacy when their marriages are falling apart. That night, Andrea slept in the guest room again. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to her move around downstairs, hearing the quiet murmur of her voice as she talked on the phone to someone. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the public library. If Andrea wanted to play games with technology, I had advantages she didn't know about. The library had computers that couldn't be traced back to me, and I had skills she'd never bothered to learn about. Travis Klein wasn't hard to find online. He was 41, married to a woman named Monica, lived in a mansion in the suburbs, and owned 3 luxury cars. His social media profiles were full of photos from country clubs and charity events, the kind of life Andrea had always wanted, but we'd never been able to afford. I dug deeper. Travis Klein had been divorced once before, 5 years ago. The divorce records were public, and they told an interesting story. His first wife had accused him of adultery with multiple women, including his real estate agent. The pattern was becoming clear. I spent the rest of the day learning everything I could about Travis Klein. His business, his habits, his weaknesses. If he wanted to play games with my wife, he was going to discover that some games have consequences. That evening, I was waiting in the kitchen when Andrea came home. "We need to talk," I said. "I'm tired, Nate. Can this wait?" "No, it can't." She sat down across from me at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd planned our future, discussed our dreams, made decisions as partners. Now it felt like a negotiation table in hostile territory. "I know about Travis Klein," I said. Her face went pale again, but this time she recovered faster. "What about him?" "I know he's married. I know he has a history of affairs with real estate agents. I know you've been meeting him at hotels. You're investigating my clients now. I'm investigating my wife. This is harassment, Nate. You're harassing me and my clients. I'm trying to save my marriage. By acting like a stalker. By trying to understand why the woman I've loved for 12 years is lying to me about everything." Andrea's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I saw her face soften in a way it hadn't softened for me in months. "Is that him?" I asked. "It's work." "Show me." "No." "Then I'm done." The words surprised me as much as they surprised her. I hadn't planned to say them, but once they were out there, I realized I meant them. "Done with what?" she asked. "Done pretending this is a marriage. Done pretending you care about us. Done pretending I don't know what's happening." "Nothing is happening." "Something is happening, Andrea. Maybe not what I think, but something. And until you're ready to tell me the truth, we don't have anything to talk about." I stood up and walked toward the stairs. "Where are you going?" "To pack some things. I'm staying at Rick's for a while." "You're leaving me?" "No," I said, turning back to look at her. "You left me the first time you lied. I'm just making it official." An hour later, I was standing on Rick's doorstep with a suitcase and a marriage that felt as broken as everything else in my life. "This is temporary," Rick said, helping me carry my things inside. "You two will work this out." "Maybe," I said, though I was starting to doubt it. That night, lying on Rick's couch, I got a text from the same unknown number as before. "Travis Klein, BMW license plate 7G4H2P, Marriott Hotel, room 412, every Tuesday and Thursday. Your wife has expensive taste." Someone was definitely watching. Someone wanted me to know the truth, and someone was about to help me figure out what to do about it. The game was getting more interesting. Living at Rick's house was like being trapped in a time machine set to college dorm room. Pizza boxes stacked on the counter, dishes in the sink, and the lingering smell of bachelor desperation mixed with discount air freshener. Rick meant well, but his idea of emotional support involved beer and avoiding serious conversations. "You sure you don't want to just talk to her?" Rick asked for the 100th time as we sat in his living room watching mindless television. "Talk to her about what? She's already told me everything I need to know." "Maybe she's scared. Maybe she doesn't know how to tell you what's really going on." I looked at my best friend, wondering when he'd become Andrea's advocate. "Rick, she gave me an STD and then blamed me for it. She's meeting another man at hotels. What part of that suggests she wants to work things out?" "People make mistakes, Nate. Doesn't mean the marriage has to end. Some mistakes are bigger than others." Rick opened another beer and changed the subject, but I could see him thinking, calculating something behind his eyes. It reminded me of the way Andrea looked when she was preparing her next lie. The next morning, I drove to Travis Klein's country club. I'd found his golf schedule online. Apparently, rich people like their routines documented and shared. He played every Wednesday morning at 9, usually followed by lunch at the club restaurant. The parking lot was full of luxury cars that cost more than most people's houses. Travis's BMW was easy to spot, parked in the shade like a pampered pet. I parked across the street and waited. Around noon, Travis emerged from the clubhouse with 3 other men, all of them laughing at something that probably wasn't funny. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, confident, wearing clothes that screamed money and privilege, the kind of man who took what he wanted and never considered the consequences. Thusum, I watched him say goodbye to his friends and walk toward his car. That's when I made my move. The beauty of expensive cars is that they're designed to impress, not to withstand practical jokes. I'd stopped at the grocery store on the way over and bought several pounds of shrimp and fish, all of which were now carefully distributed throughout Travis's BMW. Under the seats, in the air vents, tucked into the door panels, anywhere the smell would linger and spread. It took me less than 5 minutes to turn his luxury vehicle into a rolling seafood disaster. I was back in my car when Travis reached his BMW. He opened the driver's door and immediately stepped back, covering his nose with his hand. I watched him circle the car, opening doors and windows, trying to figure out what had happened. Other club members started to notice. A small crowd gathered, offering suggestions and sympathy while trying not to laugh. Travis's face grew redder by the minute as the smell spread across the parking lot. "Excuse me," I said, walking over to the group. "Is everything okay?" Travis looked up from his ruined car, sweat beading on his forehead. Someone put fish in my car." "Fish?" I said, acting shocked. "That's terrible. Who would do such a thing?" "I don't know, but when I find out—" He trailed off, probably realizing that threatening violence in front of witnesses at his country club wasn't the best strategy. "Maybe it's someone who doesn't appreciate your business practices," I said quietly, so only he could hear. Travis's eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "I said maybe you should be more careful about the relationships you develop with married women." The color drained from his face. He looked around at the crowd of club members, then back at me. "Who are you?" "I'm the husband." For a moment, I thought he might take a swing at me. His hands clenched into fists, and I could see him weighing his options. But we were surrounded by witnesses, and Travis Klein was the type of man who cared more about his reputation than his anger. "I don't know what you think you know," he said quietly, "but you're making a mistake." "The only mistake I made was trusting my wife," I said, "but that's a mistake I won't make again." I turned and walked back to my car, leaving Travis standing next to his ruined BMW with a crowd of curious onlookers. In my rearview mirror, I watched him pull out his phone and make a call, probably to Andrea, probably to warn her that her husband was no longer playing defense. That afternoon, I got a call from Andrea. "What did you do?" she screamed into the phone. "I had a conversation with your client. You vandalized his car." I introduced some seafood to his interior. No permanent damage. "He's threatening to call the police." "For what?" "There's no law against leaving fish in public places." "This is insane, Nate. You can't go around harassing my clients." "He's not your client, Andrea. He's your boyfriend, and if he wants to play games with married women, he needs to understand that married women have husbands. You're going to ruin everything. Everything's already ruined. I'm just making sure everyone knows it." She hung up on me, but not before I heard her crying. Real tears, not the crocodile tears she used when she wanted sympathy. For the first time since this whole mess started, Andrea was genuinely upset. Good. That evening, Rick came home from work looking troubled. "I heard about what you did today," he said. "From who?" "Andrea called me. She's worried about you. She's worried about herself." "Nate, this isn't like you. You're not the kind of guy who vandalizes cars and harasses people." I'm not the kind of guy whose wife cheats on him either, but here we are. Rick sat down across from me, using his teacher voice, patient but firm. This isn't going to solve anything. You're just going to make things worse. Worse for who? For everyone. For you, for Andrea, for this Travis guy. I don't care about Travis, and Andrea made her choice when she decided to cheat. What if you're wrong? What if there's an innocent explanation for all of this? I stared at my best friend, wondering if he was really that naive or if something else was going on. Rick, I saw them together. I have hotel receipts. I have an STD that didn't come from nowhere. What innocent explanation covers all of that? Maybe she made a mistake, but it's over now. Maybe she's trying to end it and doesn't know how. Then she should have come to me. We should have worked through it together. Instead, she lied and blamed me and made me think I was crazy. Rick nodded, but I could see he wasn't convinced. Just be careful, okay? Don't do anything you'll regret. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Rick's reaction, about the way he seemed more concerned with protecting Andrea than supporting me. It reminded me of something, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Around midnight, I heard Rick talking on the phone in his bedroom. The walls were thin, and his voice carried more than he probably realized. I know, he was saying. But you have to understand. He's really hurt. No, I don't think he'll do anything violent, but he's not thinking clearly. I'm trying to talk him down, but he's convinced you're having an affair. I crept closer to his door, straining to hear the other side of the conversation. Look, maybe you should just tell him the truth. I know it's complicated, but this is getting out of hand. He's my best friend, but I can't keep covering for you if you're not going to be honest with him. Covering for her. Rick was covering for Andrea. I went back to the couch and lay there in the dark, processing what I'd heard. My best friend wasn't just defending my wife. He was actively helping her hide something from me. The question was, what was he helping her hide, and why? The next morning, Rick left for work early, avoiding eye contact and mumbling something about a faculty meeting. I waited until his car disappeared, then searched his house. I found Andrea's spare key in Rick's kitchen drawer, along with a note in her handwriting. Thanks for everything. I owe you big time. In Rick's bedroom, I found something even more interesting. A photo of Andrea, Rick, and Travis at some restaurant, all of them laughing and looking like old friends. The picture was dated 3 months ago. 3 months ago, Rick had been telling me that Andrea was working too hard and needed my support. 3 months ago, he'd been encouraging me to give her space and trust her judgment. 3 months ago, my best friend had been lying to me just as much as my wife. I put everything back where I'd found it and left the house. I had work to do, and now I knew I was working alone. The war had just gotten more personal. I spent the morning in my car outside Rick's school, watching him teach through the classroom windows like some kind of deranged parent. He looked so normal, so innocent, explaining history to a room full of teenagers who probably weren't listening. But I couldn't stop thinking about that photo, about the phone call, about how long my best friend had been lying to my face. When the lunch bell rang, I was waiting by his car. "Nate!" Rick looked genuinely surprised to see me. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk. I'm on lunch duty. Can this wait until—" "No, it can't wait." Something in my voice must have convinced him, because he glanced around the parking lot, then nodded toward his car. "Get in." We sat in his Honda Civic with the windows down, watching students stream across the campus. For a moment, it felt like old times. Two friends taking a break from their problems. Then I remembered why I was there. "How long have you known?" I asked. "Known what?" "About Andrea and Travis." Rick's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I found the photo, Rick. The three of you at dinner. 3 months ago." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Rick stared straight ahead, probably calculating how much truth he could get away with. "It's not what you think," he said finally. "Then tell me what it is." Andrea asked me to meet him. She wanted a second opinion. A second opinion about what? About whether she should tell you. Tell me what? Rick turned to look at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Guilt mixed with something else, something that looked almost like satisfaction. "She's been having an affair," he said quietly. "But it's complicated." "Complicated how?" "She wants to leave him. She wants to work things out with you. But Travis, he's not making it easy." "So you've been helping her figure out how to dump her boyfriend and come back to me?" "Something like that." "And you didn't think I deserved to know any of this?" "She made me promise not to tell you. She wanted to handle it herself." I stared at my best friend, trying to reconcile the Rick I'd known for 15 years with the man sitting next to me. The Rick I knew was honest, loyal, straightforward. This Rick was something else entirely. Why? I asked. Why what? Why help her? Why lie to me? Why get involved at all? Rick was quiet for a long time, watching the students in the parking lot. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I love her. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually felt the air leave my lungs. What did you say? I've been in love with Andrea since college, since before you two got together. That's impossible. Is it? Think about it, Nate. Who introduced you to Andrea? Who encouraged you to ask her out? Who was always there when you two had problems? I thought back to college, to the early days of my relationship with Andrea. Rick had been there for everything. Our first date, our first fight, our engagement, our wedding. I thought he was being a good friend. Apparently, he'd been playing a longer game. You introduced us because you loved her? I introduced you because I knew she'd never choose me, but I thought maybe if I stayed close, if I was always there for her. You thought she'd eventually leave me for you. I thought she'd realize what she was missing. And when she started cheating with Travis, I saw an opportunity. The honesty was brutal. Rick wasn't even trying to soften it or make excuses. He was just laying out the truth like a teacher explaining a lesson plan. You encouraged her to cheat. I encouraged her to be honest about what she wanted. And what she wanted was Travis Klein. What she wanted was excitement, adventure, something different from what you were giving her. So you helped her find it. I helped her explore her options. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to grab him by the throat and shake him until his teeth rattled. Instead, I just sat there, trying to process the fact that my marriage hadn't just been destroyed by my wife's affair, but by my best friend's 15-year plan to steal her from me. Does she know? I asked. Know what? That you're in love with her. She's always known. And she's never felt the same way about me. So you decided to destroy her marriage instead. I decided to help her be happy, by encouraging her to cheat, by encouraging her to follow her heart. Her heart led her to Travis Klein. Her heart led her away from you. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Students started walking back toward the school building, chatting and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. I envied them. I need you to move out, Rick said quietly. What? I need you to find somewhere else to stay. This isn't working. You're kicking me out? I'm protecting myself. And Andrea. From what? From whatever you're planning to do next? I looked at my best friend, my former best friend, and realized I was completely alone. My wife was cheating on me. My best friend was in love with my wife, and everyone I trusted had been lying to me for months. You're right, I said, getting out of the car. This isn't working. That afternoon, I found a cheap motel on the outskirts of town and checked in for a week. The room smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams, but it was mine, and nobody there was lying to me about their motives. I sat on the bed and made a list of everything I knew. Andrea was having an affair with Travis Klein. Rick was in love with Andrea and had been helping her. Someone was sending me anonymous tips about Andrea's activities. Everyone thought I was the problem. The last item bothered me the most. Somehow, in the space of a few weeks, I'd gone from being the faithful husband to being the crazy stalker. Andrea had managed to flip the narrative so completely that even my best friend thought I was the one who needed to be managed. But I wasn't crazy. I was just outnumbered. My phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. Rick O'Malley has been covering for your wife for months. Check his phone records, check his bank statements. You're not the only one being lied to. I stared at the message, wondering who my mysterious ally was and why they seemed to know more about my life than I did. But they'd been right about everything so far, so I decided to follow their advice. Getting Rick's phone records required some creativity, but I had advantages that most suspicious husbands don't have. I knew Rick's social security number, his mother's maiden name, and all the other little details that phone companies use to verify identity. It took 3 calls and some creative acting, but I eventually convinced a customer service representative to email me Rick's records. What I found was interesting. Rick had been calling Andrea every day for the past 3 months, sometimes multiple times a day. He'd also been calling Travis Klein, though less frequently. But the most interesting calls were to a number I didn't recognize. Dozens of calls over the past month, always late at night or early in the morning. I traced the number to a woman named Monica Klein, Travis's wife. I sat in my motel room, staring at the phone records and trying to piece together what was happening. Rick was calling Monica Klein regularly. Monica Klein was married to Travis Klein. Travis Klein was having an affair with Andrea. Andrea was married to me. It was like a soap opera written by someone with a psychology degree and a twisted sense of humor. My phone rang. Andrea. "Where are you?" she demanded. "Why do you care?" "Because Rick said you moved out of his place. Because you're acting insane. Because I'm worried about you." "Now you're worried about me?" "I've always been worried about you." Funny way of showing it. "Nate, we need to talk. Really talk. No accusations, no drama, just talk." "About what?" "About us. About what happens next. What happens next is I file for divorce." "Don't say that, please. We can work through this." "Work through what, Andrea? You still haven't admitted that anything happened." Okay, yes. Something happened with Travis. But it's over now. It was a mistake, and it's over. Finally. After weeks of lies and gaslighting, she was admitting the truth. It should have felt like a victory, but it just felt like another manipulation. "When did it start?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." 3 months ago, maybe 4. "How many times?" "Nate, please, don't make this harder than it has to be." "How many times, Andrea?" "I don't know. A few times a week?" "A few times a week for 3 or 4 months. While she was coming home to me, kissing me goodnight, making plans for our future." "Where?" "Hotels, mostly. Sometimes his office." "Did Rick know?" Silence. "Andrea, did Rick know?" He suspected. And he didn't tell me." "I asked him not to." "So my best friend helped you hide your affair from me." "He was trying to protect everyone." "Everyone except me." "He was trying to protect you too. He thought if you knew, you'd do something stupid." "Something stupid like what I did to Travis's car?" "Something stupid like what you're doing now." "What am I doing now?" "You're destroying everything. Your marriage, your friendships, your reputation. People are starting to talk, Nate. They're saying you're having some kind of breakdown." "People are talking? What people?" "Everyone. Rick, my friends, the neighbors. They're all worried about you." "They're worried about me, or they're worried about what I might do next?" "Both." I hung up on her and threw my phone across the room. It bounced off the wall and landed on the carpet, still intact but probably damaged, like everything else in my life. The anonymous text came at 6 in the morning. "Block party at your house today. Andrea's planning something. Don't let her control the narrative." I'd been awake for hours anyway, staring at the motel room ceiling and planning my next move. The anonymous tipster was right. I'd been letting Andrea control the story for too long. Time to change that. I drove to our neighborhood and parked down the street from our house. Andrea's car was there, along with several others I recognized. Becca's red convertible, Jules's SUV, and Rick's Honda Civic. They were having a meeting, probably planning their next move in the campaign to make me look crazy. My phone rang. My sister Jo. "I heard you and Andrea are having problems," she said without preamble. Jo had never been one for small talk. "Where did you hear that?" "Rick called me. He's worried about you." "Rick's worried about himself." "What's that supposed to mean?" I told her everything. The affair, the lies, Rick's confession, the whole twisted mess. Jo listened without interrupting, occasionally making disgusted noises. "That lying witch," she said when I finished. "Which one?" "Both of them. All of them. Nate, you can't let them get away with this." "I'm not planning to." "Good. What do you need me to do?" Jo had always been my fiercest defender. When we were kids, she'd fought my battles for me. When we were adults, she'd continued fighting them, just with more sophisticated weapons. "I need you to come to a party," I said. 3 hours later, I was standing in front of my own house, watching the neighborhood gather for what Andrea had advertised as an intervention for her troubled husband. She'd invited everyone: neighbors, friends, co-workers, people I barely knew but who apparently had opinions about my mental health. Andrea looked surprised to see me, but she recovered quickly. "Nate," she said, walking over with her concerned wife expression, "I'm so glad you came." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. "It's not every day my wife throws me a party." "This isn't a party. We're all just worried about you." "All of us," Rick said, appearing at Andrea's side like a loyal dog. "We want to help." I looked around at the crowd gathering on our front lawn. Maybe 30 people, all of them watching me with expressions ranging from curiosity to pity. Andrea had done her job well. I was the crazy husband, and they were the concerned community trying to help. "That's very thoughtful," I said. "But before we start talking about my problems, I think everyone should know what's really been going on." "Nate, please," Andrea said quietly, "don't do this." Do what? Tell the truth? I pulled out my phone and connected it to the portable speaker I'd brought from my car. The same speaker Andrea and I had used for neighborhood barbecues and birthday parties. How's that for irony? Ladies and gentlemen, I said, raising my voice so everyone could hear. Thank you for coming to what my wife has described as an intervention. She's right that someone in this marriage has been having problems. She's just wrong about who. I pressed play on my phone. Andrea's voice filled the air, crystal clear thanks to the recording I'd made of one of her phone calls with Travis. I can't keep doing this, her recorded voice said. Nate's getting suspicious, and Rick thinks we should cool it for a while. I don't care what Rick thinks, Travis's voice replied. And I don't care if your husband is suspicious. You're mine now. The crowd went silent. I could see people looking at each other, then at Andrea, then at me. Andrea's face had gone completely white. That's not, she started to say, but I held up my hand. There's more, I said, and played the next recording. This one was Rick talking to someone on the phone. I know it's risky, but if Nate finds out about the affair, maybe Andrea will finally leave him. Maybe she'll realize what she's been missing. More silence. More stares. Rick looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. And just so everyone understands the timeline, I said, these conversations took place while my wife was telling everyone that I was the unfaithful one, while she was convincing our friends and neighbors that I was having some kind of mental breakdown. I played one more recording, Andrea talking to Becca. The STD thing worked perfectly. Now everyone thinks Nate's the cheater. Even if he finds out about Travis, no one will believe him. Becca gasped audibly. Several people in the crowd started whispering to each other. I could see the narrative shifting in real time. So yes, I said, putting my phone away. Someone in this marriage has been having problems. Someone has been lying, cheating, and manipulating everyone around them. Someone has been trying to destroy their spouse's reputation to cover their own tracks. I looked directly at Andrea. But it wasn't me. The crowd was buzzing now, everyone talking at once. Andrea looked around desperately, probably searching for an escape route or an ally. Rick had already started backing toward his car. You recorded me, Andrea said, her voice shaking. You recorded private conversations. I recorded evidence, I said. Evidence of what you've been doing to our marriage and to me. This is illegal. Actually, it's not. Illinois is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, it's perfectly legal. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, Andrea. I'm just letting everyone hear what you've been doing to yourself. That's when Monica Klein stepped out of the crowd. I'd seen her in photos, but never met her in person. She was elegant, composed, and absolutely furious. Mrs. Barlow, she said, her voice carrying across the lawn like a knife. I think you and I need to have a conversation. Andrea looked confused. I'm sorry, do we know each other? I'm Monica Klein, Travis's wife. The crowd went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on our front lawn. I've been having some very interesting conversations with Mr. O'Malley here, Monica continued, nodding toward Rick. He's been keeping me informed about my husband's activities. And yours? Rick's face went from pale to green. I realized that my anonymous tipster hadn't been anonymous at all. It had been Monica Klein, using Rick to gather information about her husband's affair. I don't understand, Andrea said weakly. My husband has a pattern, Monica said. He seduces married women, convinces them to leave their husbands, and then abandons them when he gets bored. Usually I just let it run its course, but this time was different. Different how? This time he picked someone married to a man I felt sorry for. Monica walked over to me and held out her hand. Mr. Barlow, I apologize for what my husband has done to your marriage, and I want you to know that as of this morning, Travis no longer has access to any of our joint accounts, properties, or assets. I've also filed for divorce and named your wife as a correspondent. I shook her hand, trying to process what was happening. You're the one who's been sending me information. Rick has been very helpful in that regard. Haven't you, Rick? Rick looked like he was about to be sick. Monica, we had an agreement. We did. You provided information about the affair, and I provided you with... What was it you wanted? Oh yes, the opportunity to be Andrea's shoulder to cry on when her relationship with my husband inevitably ended. You used him, I said. Just like he was using you. Just like your wife was using both of you. The crowd was eating this up. 30 people watching a real-life soap opera unfold on a suburban front lawn. I could see phones out, people recording, probably already posting to social media. Andrea's reputation wasn't just damaged, it was destroyed. I have to go, Andrea said, pushing through the crowd toward her car. Actually, Monica said, You can't. What do you mean I can't? I mean, your car has been repossessed. Apparently the loan was in Travis's name, and he's no longer making payments. Andrea stared at her silver Honda, which now had a bright yellow boot on the front wheel and a notice taped to the windshield. That's impossible. Check your purse, Monica suggested. I believe you'll find that several of your credit cards have been canceled as well. Andrea fumbled for her wallet, pulling out card after card and checking them frantically. From her expression, Monica was right. Travis has been very thorough in distancing himself from this situation, Monica continued. As of this morning, he's claiming that you seduced him, that you threatened to destroy his marriage if he didn't continue the relationship, and that you've been stalking him for months. That's not true. Of course it's not. But Travis has resources, lawyers, and a wife who's willing to support his version of events in exchange for a favorable divorce settlement. I watched my wife realize that she'd been played just as badly as I had. The difference was I still had my job, my house, and my dignity. Andrea had nothing. Nate, she said, turning to me with tears in her eyes. Please, we can work this out. We can start over. With what? I asked. You don't have a car, a job, or any money. Your reputation is destroyed. Your lover has abandoned you. Your friends have heard you admit to lying about everything. I'll change. I'll be different. You are different, Andrea. You're different from the woman I married. You're different from the woman I thought I knew, and that's not something you can change back. Rick tried to approach Andrea, probably thinking this was his moment to finally be her hero. She turned on him like a wounded animal. Don't you dare, she snarled. This is all your fault. You encouraged me. You said Nate would never find out. You said you'd protect me. I did protect you. I tried to. You used me. You manipulated me just like everyone else. I love you. You love the idea of me. You love the fantasy. You don't know anything about the real me. The crowd was watching this like a tennis match, heads turning back and forth between the players. I almost felt sorry for all of them. Andrea, Rick, even Travis, wherever he was hiding. Almost. I think this intervention is over, I said to the crowd. Thank you all for coming. I think we've all learned something today. People started to disperse, chatting excitedly about what they'd witnessed. This would be the talk of the neighborhood for months. Andrea stood in the middle of our front lawn, surrounded by the wreckage of her life, looking lost and defeated. What am I supposed to do now? She asked. I honestly don't know, I said. But it's not my problem anymore. I walked toward my car, leaving my wife, my former best friend, and my former life behind. Tomorrow I'd start the divorce proceedings. Tomorrow I'd begin rebuilding. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The war was over. And I'd won. The storm hit Chicago like nature's own revenge plot. All howling wind and sheets of rain that turned the streets into rivers. I was in my motel room, packing the last of my things and preparing to find a real apartment when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. They're coming for you tonight. All 3 of them. Be ready. I stared at the message, wondering if Monica Klein was still feeding me information or if I had a new ally. Either way, the warning felt real. I drove through the storm to our house. My house, legally speaking, though it felt more like a crime scene now. The neighborhood was dark except for the occasional flicker of lightning illuminating the suburban landscape. Most people were smart enough to stay inside during weather like this. I wasn't most people. Andrea's car was in the driveway, along with Rick's Honda and a BMW I didn't recognize. Probably a rental, since Travis's luxury car was still recovering from its seafood incident. They were all here, probably planning their next move in whatever game they thought they were still playing. I parked down the street and approached the house carefully. The front door was open, which struck me as odd until I realized they'd probably broken in. My own house, and they'd broken in like common criminals. The irony was perfect. I could hear voices from the living room, angry, desperate voices that carried through the storm like accusations. This is insane, Travis was saying. We need to cut our losses and walk away. Walk away to what? Andrea shot back. You've destroyed my life. My marriage, my reputation, my career, everything's gone because of you. Because of me? You're the one who seduced me. I seduced you. You pursued me for months. That's not how I remember it. Of course it's not. Nothing is ever your fault, is it? Rick's voice cut through their argument. Fighting isn't going to solve anything. We need to focus on Nate. What about Nate? Travis asked. He's the problem, Rick said. He's the one who exposed everything. He's the one who ruined all our plans. Your plans, Andrea corrected. This was always about your obsession with me. I was trying to help you. You were trying to manipulate me into leaving my husband for you. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong is that I never wanted you. I never loved you. You were just convenient. I listened to them tear each other apart, feeling like an audience member at the world's most dysfunctional theater production. They'd destroyed my marriage, betrayed my trust, and tried to make me think I was crazy. Now they were turning on each other like wolves fighting over scraps. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the living room through the windows. I could see them clearly, Andrea pacing like a caged animal, Rick slumped in my favorite chair looking defeated, Travis standing by the fireplace like he was giving a presentation to hostile investors. "We need to get our stories straight," Travis said. "If we're going to salvage anything from this mess, we need to present a united front." "United front?" Andrea laughed bitterly. "Your wife has already filed for divorce and named me as a correspondent. My husband has recordings of everything we've said. Rick's been feeding information to your wife for months. What exactly are we supposed to unite around?" "We unite around the truth," Travis said. "Which truth would that be?" Rick asked. "The one where you seduced a married woman? Or the one where she seduced you? Or the one where I helped orchestrate the whole thing?" "The truth that matters," Travis said, "is that Nate Barlow is unstable. He's been stalking us, harassing us, vandalizing property. He's dangerous." "Oh, dangerous," Andrea said. "He put fish in your car." "He's escalating. Today it was fish, tomorrow it could be something worse." "You want to make him the villain," Rick said slowly. "Even now, after everything we've done, you want to make him the bad guy." "He is the bad guy," Travis exploded. "He's the reason we're all here. He's the reason everything fell apart." "Everything fell apart because we're terrible people," Andrea said quietly. "Because I cheated on my husband, because Rick betrayed his best friend, because you're a predator who destroys marriages for fun." "I didn't destroy your marriage," Travis said. "Your marriage was already broken. I just accelerated the process." That's when I decided I'd heard enough. I walked through the front door like I owned the place, which technically I did. All three of them turned to stare at me, their faces showing various degrees of shock, fear, and resignation. "Don't stop on my account," I said, shaking rain from my jacket. "This is better than anything on television." "Nate," Andrea said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "I live here. Or did you forget that part?" "We were just," Rick started to say. "You were just breaking into my house and planning your next move," I interrupted. "I heard the whole thing." Travis straightened up, trying to regain some of his composure. "This is still partially my fault. I should have been more careful about the situation I was getting involved in." "Your fault?" I laughed. "Travis, you seduced a married woman, convinced her to cheat on her husband, and then abandoned her when things got complicated. But sure, it's only partially your fault." "I never forced anyone to do anything they didn't want to do." "No, you just made them want to do things they shouldn't have done. That's your talent, isn't it? Making people compromise their values for the promise of something better." "I gave Andrea excitement, adventure, things you never gave her. I gave Andrea loyalty, honesty, 12 years of faithful marriage, but I guess that's not as exciting as hotel rooms and secret phone calls." Andrea was crying now, real tears that streaked her makeup and made her look older, more fragile. "Nate, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." "Sorry doesn't fix anything, Andrea. Sorry doesn't give me back the marriage I thought I had. Sorry doesn't cure the STD you gave me or repair the reputation you tried to destroy. I know it doesn't. But I need you to know that I never meant for it to go this far." "How far did you mean for it to go? Just a little cheating? Just a small betrayal? Just enough lies to keep me confused, but not enough to destroy our marriage completely?" She didn't have an answer for that. Rick stood up from my chair, looking like a man walking to his own execution. "Nate, I need to explain." "Explain what? That you've been in love with my wife for 15 years? That you encouraged her to cheat so you could swoop in and be her hero? That you betrayed our friendship for the chance to steal her from me?" "It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. You admitted it yourself. I thought if she was unhappy with you, maybe she'd realize that her husband's best friend was a better choice. Rick, she didn't leave me for you. She left me for him." I pointed at Travis. "And when he abandoned her, she still didn't choose you. Even now, even after everything you've done for her, she doesn't want you." Rick's face crumpled. "I know." "Then why are you here? Why are you still trying to help her?" "Because I don't know how to stop." The honesty was brutal. Rick looked like a man who'd spent so long living a lie that he'd forgotten how to live any other way. Thunder crashed outside, shaking the windows and making all of us jump. The storm was getting worse, which seemed appropriate for the moment. "So what happens now?" Travis asked. We all go our separate ways and pretend this never happened? That's not an option, I said. Too many people know the truth now. Your wife, my neighbors, probably half the internet by tomorrow morning. Then what do you want? Andrea asked. What would it take for you to? I don't know. Forgive us? I looked at my wife, my former best friend, and the man who'd helped destroy my marriage. They were all staring at me like I held the key to their redemption. I don't want anything from any of you, I said. I want you out of my house, out of my life, and out of my future. I want to never see you again, never think about you again, never have to explain to anyone else what you did to me. And if we leave, Travis asked, if we disappear and never bother you again? Then you get to live with what you've done. You get to wake up every morning knowing that you're the kind of people who destroy marriages for entertainment. You get to look in the mirror and see exactly who you really are. Lightning flashed again, and in that brief moment of illumination, I saw something I'd never seen before. All three of them looked ashamed. Not sorry they'd been caught, not sorry they'd been exposed, but genuinely ashamed of what they'd become. It was the first honest emotion I'd seen from any of them in months. The storm's getting worse, Rick said, looking toward the windows. Maybe we should wait until? No, I said firmly. You leave now. All of you. I don't care about the weather. Andrea grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then stopped and turned back to me. Nate, I know you'll never forgive me, and I know I've destroyed everything we had. But I need you to know that I did love you. Maybe not the way you deserved, maybe not enough to stop me from making terrible choices, but I did love you. I know, I said. That's what makes this so much worse. She nodded and walked out into the storm. Rick followed her, pausing at the door. I'm sorry I wasn't a better friend. I'm sorry I trusted you to be one. He flinched like I'd slapped him, then disappeared into the rain. Travis was the last to leave. He stood in my doorway for a moment, rain soaking his expensive clothes, looking like a man who'd just realized the true cost of his actions. For what it's worth, he said, your wife was right about one thing. You're a better man than either of us deserve to compete with. I wasn't competing, I said. I was just being married. He nodded and walked away, leaving me alone in my house for the first time in weeks. I stood in the doorway, watching their cars disappear into the storm. 3 people who'd been the center of my world just months ago, now driving away like strangers. The rain was cold on my face, but it felt clean, washing away the last remnants of the life I'd thought I was living. Tomorrow I'd file the divorce papers, tomorrow I'd change the locks, tomorrow I'd start building a new life with people who actually deserved my trust. But tonight, I stood in my doorway and watched the storm wash away the past, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Free. Thunder rolled across the sky like applause, and I smiled for the first time since this whole mess began. The war was over, the truth had won, and I was finally, completely, absolutely done with all of them. I closed the door and locked it, sealing out the storm and everything it had brought with it. The future was waiting, and it looked a lot brighter than the past.